Welcome everybody to the first round of the Oklahoma FIDE tournament being held here in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. This first round, I am playing Christopher Cole, rated 1863 USCF, like 1700 FIDE rating. I have the USCF ratings listed here, and I had done a little bit of preparation before the game, and I had seen that he was an E4 player. Okay, I had some stuff prepared. Show up to the board, he plays this. Okay, the English now. I actually thought here for a bit. Ended up going with e6, maybe not the best idea, because e6 is very solid. I could have maybe gone for e5, d6, f5, which is the system I usually play. A little bit more dynamic positions there, but I went for e6, knight f3, knight f6, g3, and here I legitimately sat at the board for like 5 minutes on move 3, trying to decide what to do, because I was like, okay, I know I can play b6, go to queen's Indian, I can play c5 to try and challenge the center like this. I can play bishop e7, I can play like a few different things. I could even play knight c6, which is more of an edgy way to play the position. But I decided to play the move d5. And my opponent here developed the bishop to g2. And my opponent was trying to get some kind of Catalan setup without allowing bishop to b4 or one of the other big sidelines that can kind of happen. And here it was a big decision here. Do I play d4? And there's one thing that really took me away from d4. That's the World Championship. I don't know how many people have been watching that. But d4 was played, I think, twice. Once? Okay, not in the same position, but d4 was played, and black lost both games with d4. So I'm like, I'm just going to stay away from... I'm just going to go play bishop e7. I know bishop e7. d4, castles, castles. Now we get to this position, and here overwhelmingly d takes c4 is the main move. It's what everybody plays. And knowing that, I knew my opponent would probably have a good deal of preparation in the move d takes c4. So I decided to play a line that I've never played before, and I've only seen played like twice, a5. And the point of a5 is I'm just taking space on the queen side. Trying to counteract this b3 plan, because the b3 I can play a4. You never really want to take this pawn, because bishop b7, you activate the rook. This is just never really something you want to allow if you're white. My opponent went queen c2, just defending the pawn. Makes sense. That pawn was a free pawn, but there's lots of theory after queen c2, a6, a4, stuff like this. I didn't want to go into all that, because I didn't know it that well, and usually I play b6 here, which is not something I want to play against a low-rated player. So I decided to go with this a5. Queen c2, and here I played knight c6, which is the way I saw you're supposed to play this. And the idea with this move is you're just trying to get in. Puts pressure on the center immediately. Looks weird to put the knight on c6. Not really something you're supposed to do. But I'm trying to bait a move like a3. And then I can play a4, and then knight a5. And here, I thought I was quite happy if my opponent went for the move a3. Apparently here the entrance trying to tell me that takes knight c3, and I'm just straight up worse because this pawn is a weakness. But it is what it is. I thought this was quite a good plan. So b3. I played the move a4 because this is my whole plan to try and attack this pawn. Now I actually have a threat here. My opponent plays like a random move. I can actually play a takes b4. And if a takes, obviously they lose the rook in the corner. And if queen takes b3, I have knight a5, winning the pawn on c4. So they can't just sit around and ignore this. And they don't. He plays bishop to b2. Just developing the bishop makes sense. Here I decided to play the move knight e4. This was my plan, to bring the knight into the center, and then play f5 to solidify it. Like, let's say knight e4, my opponent, let's say, like, they bring the knight back. Well, here there's a3, which is quite nice, but f5, this was my plan. Also, I'd like to mention knight c3 loses on the spot. And this was a trick that I was hoping. But of course my opponent wouldn't fall for it, but it's just something to keep in mind. Knight b4, and my opponent can resign, because the queen has to go somewhere. If it goes to one of these two squares, no more protection over the knight. Oh, sorry. If it goes to one of these squares, a3, two pieces are hanging. This piece is hanging. If you go bishop c1, you take the knight, and if you take the knight, then I take first. Or I can take this too. And if queen c1, this just traps the bishop, and if it takes, I can take the knight, or take the bishop, and taking the knight's better. So that was one of the traps that I did have in the position. My opponent played knight a3. This is a move that I did not anticipate, but it does make sense. You block a3. So now I no longer have that as a threat. You want to come in here and try to maybe pressure my position. Okay, continue with my plan, playing f5. And also, this is a very long thinking game. we both were spending quite a bit of time. So queen c1 played for my opponent. This is a very logical move, I thought. Just defending the knight another time. And also like to mention with f5, I have another plan, which is rook f6, queen f8. To pressure the knight, and when the knight moves, I can play a3. And this is my idea, to get in with a3, knight b4 and stuff, and just, I have a good position. So queen c1, I was kind of annoyed, like, that's not really an idea anymore, because this is defended now. But here, if I play bishop d7, I'm just better. And the reason I'm better is white doesn't really have much play. I thought a move like 95 could be strong, but I can just take it. And this diagonal being weak is too much of a problem. Like, I go c6 and then bishop d5, and it's too much of a problem. So, after queen c1, I decided to go rook f6, which was my plan originally, to go queen f8 and try and come underneath. And here my opponent played the move knight to b5. And here I was calculating some stuff. Now, this is a really annoying move because it stops my plan of queen f8. Obviously, because I'm attacking the pawn. I'm like, okay, what do I want? What does white want? White, I thought, wanted knight e5. This is a very, very common Catalan idea. Bring the knight to the center, open the bishop. I thought this is 100% what he wanted. So I was like, well, with knight e5, I want to take and maybe try and do something like c6. But if knight e5 hits my rook, so I'm like, I'm going to go rook h6. Rook h6 seems like a great move because I move it towards the king. I have queen e8, queen h5 ideas in the future. Knight e5 no longer comes with a tempo on me, so I can play c6, kick this knight out, and then a3, I'm in pretty good shape. That was my idea. Like, a knight c3, a3, and I just went. So, my opponent played rook d1, which is logical move. I played bishop to d7. I just had to develop this bishop at some point. Now I'm eyeing the knight. And another thing is, this bishop is really bad. So if I can trade it for the knight, I'm going to be happy. Because this bishop's bad, the knight's a good piece. Bishop a3. Now, bishop a3 is trying to trade off this bishop, like, okay. Now, here, I have a few different options. Also, I like to mention my opponent's getting very low on time. He has, like, 15 minutes. And I have, like, 45 or something. So, I could take, and obviously they can't take it with the queen because I have a-b and open the rook. So, knight takes a3, and I'm like, okay, well, this is a little bit too dry. I gave up my good bishop, and now I just have this bad one, and I didn't really know what I was accomplishing. So, I decided to go bishop f6, which is a little bit more dynamic. It keeps more pieces on the board. Aims down this file. Knight e5 is now no longer a possibility. I thought I was in good shape here. Here he plays queen c2. And now I realized there was another problem with my position, and that's bishop c1. And there's also ba. So there's many different problems with my position here. And I'm like, how do I address both? I took, and then I went g5. And the reason I went g5 is that bishop c1 does not come with the tempo. Don't ask me why I did this. I have no idea, because I just, bishop c1 doesn't even work, because, I don't know, g5, it's a fine move, but I mean, yeah, a g5 is also someone trying to kickstart some kingside attack. So we went bishop b2. I played knight b4 to bring the knight in. He takes, I take, queen c1. Now, we're in this position here, and I thought for like 20 minutes, and he has like 5 minutes. So I'm like, okay, if I can complicate the position even a little bit, he's gonna just crumble. That's what I thought. And I already thought the game was kind of tipping in my favor. Of course, the engine says like plus 0.6, you know, white's just better. And the best move is queen 8. I didn't like this because I thought my opponent could just trade queens, and I didn't really see what I was doing here. Of course, take the pawn, knight e5. I didn't like this position because my knight left the center, so I kind of have to justify that. So I went for this idea after some thought. Queen e8. Also don't want to take because then the c pawn. I thought about like c6. But I just didn't like queen a1. Like, he's going to try and trade queens. He's going to try and get to an endgame. He's going to try and get a 2-result game. And I don't want that at all. I'm playing at 1800. I obviously don't want to draw. So, I played queen e8. And the question now for him is that he has to calculate. And I realized that can he take the pawn? That was the idea. And this was the plan of me going for this. Is like, okay, he's going to spend time calculating whether he can take the pawn or not. And he did. He thought down to like 1 minute before deciding eventually not to take the pawn. But if he had taken the pawn, I played queen h5. And I'm like, okay, I like this position because I'm going to try and bulldoze him on the king side. If queen a1, which I thought was the best move, I'm going to play g4, queen a8, king f7, and it's a game. Computer says plus like 1, but it's a hard line to kind of calculate. You have to like take. I thought it was something that he would not be able to figure out. And if, yeah, you have to go EF and then like allow this. It's a hard line to calculate, and I thought it gave me the best practical chances here, especially as his time got lower and lower. He played the move H4, which I knew was kind of wrong. I mean, okay, I have one move, right? Queen H5. It's the only move. My whole idea with this is to go Queen H5, bring the queen over here, try and checkmate. And here my opponent took. I took with the knight. I just blitzed this out. I mean, apparently this is not good because takes and he's not even getting mated. But, you know, he has low time, so I'm just trying to put pressure. And then he makes an inaccuracy taking, because after takes he sees F4, which I admit I did not actually think about the fact that he's just going to run away. And originally I was just like hovering over the bishop, going to play bishop F6, and then I realized, wait, king F2, and I'm not even better. And like, this dude with the 30 seconds on the clock is just going to run his king to F2, rook H1, and I'm not even sure if I'm better. My pawn is weak, the rook's coming, I might be the one that's getting attacked. So, realizing this, I thought, I'm like, okay, I have time, I can think about this position. And then I realized F4 is a massive blunder, and I had to calculate the line properly. And I'm not going to play the moves on the board, I'm going to just show what I was calculating. So, Queen H2 forces King F2, right? Because King F1, I can take on G3, and takes Rook H2, just wins the game. So, obviously my opponent can't play King F1. So I'm like, okay, King F2 is absolutely forced. Then I have this move Rook H3. Attacking the pawn twice. Rook H1 is not possible because Queen takes G3 and I win. And yeah, it's pinned, so you can't even take. So Queen H2, King F2, Rook F3. I saw two different moves to defend the pawn. Rook can't defend because the knight's here. So, Queen C3 and Queen E3. I thought Queen C3 was not good. Queen C3 is not accurate because I can take on F4. See that? Queen H2, King F2, Rook H3, Queen C3. I thought that's not accurate. Because Queen H2, King F2, Rook H3. Or I can't draw my arrows, but basically Queen C3, I can take on F4. Because the Rook on H3 pins the Queen. Yes, okay, I had that. But I ran into a problem. I was about to play Queen H2 and I realized Queen E3. And this is defended. And I'm like, wait, am I losing? There, because Rook H1 is coming, right? And I'm going to get my queen trapped. Like, my position is so delicate and my bishop's still hanging. But then, we go down the line. My opponent plays Queen E3, and I have one move, Bishop H4. And this is just so aesthetically pleasing. Having all three of the pieces just attacking this pawn. None of them can be taken, because I would take a piece of my opponent's, and he decided to play Rook H1, best move. And then here I just have to take with the queen, takes. King F3, takes. And then G takes C4. Now here Bishop E1 is more accurate, but whatever, it's still the same idea because he took 30 seconds, as always, 30-second bonus. Bishop E1, and here it's just winning because Bishop C6 is unstoppable. It's almost made. It's actually forced mate if that's kind of funny. If he plays like another move, Bishop C6, this is checkmate, which is just absolutely absurd. I was like, there's all these lines, but my opponent instead decided to play move B takes C4. If this will ever load. Yep, okay. Yeah, oh, it's a Wi-Fi. Bishop C6 check. D5 takes King G2. You can see how the game played out. King E1. Now don't take opposite color bishop endgame. You never want to allow, even if you're up a few pawns. Just Bishop E2 takes. Bishop A3. Knight C2. Bishop D6. Knight E3. C3. Bishop E4. One last thing, by the way. Do not play C2. You hang your bishop, and do not play a move like King F7 because Bishop takes C3, and all of a sudden it's kind of bad. Although this is still fine. I thought about C5 here. This is still fine because I have Knight G4. But I didn't want to, like, I was like, do I allow this? Like, there might be some situation where I have to bishop and knight mate, and I can do it, but I was like, Knight D5, what's the rush? This is just a winning endgame. E3, King F7, King E2, King E6, King D3, H5, and then in this position, my opponent resigned because you can't pick, you have to pick one or the other. If you take, obviously, this pawn one's free, and I'm just going to walk up if you try and stop this. So, good first round, overall in my opinion. I played this last night, and I just finished round 2. So I'm going to record round 2's recap. And yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I will see y'all for round 2. Yeah, I'll see y'all in the next round. Alright, bye everyone. Take care.